Higgins, as you do. You can kick us
All
off.
right, hold on. It's kind of funny. We already recorded this podcast, and we haven't recorded this podcast, and I haven't read the book yet. But I'm really mad that he made me read a full book inside of a comic book. I'm doing that thing that Dr. Manhattan did in that one issue.
You're experiencing all parts of life all at once every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you're mad about that? Like, that's kind of world opening and exponential in itself.
Yeah. And Zach already said he doesn't have pants on right now. So what do you have to be upset about?
Yeah.
You're right. I guess I should just drop a squid on this bad boy.
Welcome, everyone, to the Comicsology Club. It's a podcast where I, Snoop Lunch, and my co-host, Higgins.
Hey, that's me.
He's right over there. He's right across the room. Dog's in the middle of us chewing on a bone.
Oh, yeah, I got to
See
take that away from you.
How long that lasts before we put an end to that. She's fine right now. You know, it's Christmas time. We'll give this
Yeah,
one
we'll
to
let her have it.
But speaking of giving and sharing, we wanted to share this special podcast with a new guest, and we've got one here, Mr. ZB Steele.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet all of you from wherever you are.
Wherever you'll go, and wherever
you're listening from.
Yeah, wherever you'll be.
Yes. Pleasure to have you on here with us, sir. And thank you for picking the book. As people know or may not know, if this is their first time here, Higgins and I do basically a drunk book club. So we've got a drink we'll talk about a little later, and we've got a big book to go through today. You picked this one, so why don't you tell the people what we're reading?
So we read Watchmen, which some people say is when comic books, quote unquote, grew up. And I kind of agree with that. Like the themes in Watchmen with just the morality, some of the time shenanigans, all that, the grayness of it. I think it's an all-time classic.
It's kind of one of those rare instances where it made people who don't read comics actually kind of pay attention to one, because it was just that well regarded of a story, and is to this day. Do you guys know kind of how this story came to be, as far as, you know, the conception of it, why these characters are who they are, that sort of thing?
I know a few stories, but I don't know the core story.
No, I don't know. I don't know anything. I was just about to say I've been doing a comic book podcast for 6-ish years, and this is the first time I've read the Watchmen book. So
yeah, it
all the way through. I made it through like 3 or 4 issues before, but the books in between the pictures really took it out of me the first time I tried it.
You still held up on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of to be fair, it is, in my opinion, is probably the weakest element of this whole story.
It's just because the words are so small. I got like, they're not bad eyes, but they're not great eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it this book does a lot of things right, and it set a lot of groundwork for comics that we read today. This is one of those stories, and Higgins, this is the first time you sat down and read it. Maybe you'll feel this way, because it did establish so many kind of new ideas and what are now tropes of the genre. If you're coming into it a bit later, after having read the newer things, you might find it a little bland at points. I don't know. How do you feel?
I think it's so far past it that they've stopped doing some of the stuff so that it still felt fresh. And it was like, you know, it's doing the journal stuff, it's doing the flashbacks, it's doing all that sort of stuff. But like, I like half knew the story already, and I still didn't know where it was going. So like, I felt like it still hit home pretty well.
Yeah, like the moments that were supposed to be big moments,
yeah.
They still did that for you. Okay. Zach, what about you? Like, what is your history with this story? Like, have you read it before? Is this the first time you sat down and read it as well?
This is about my third time reading it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I went through like a heavy phase in college where I was just like looking up everything I can about it. Like, there's some cool stuff about like characters represent philosophies and all that. And as time has gone by, I've kind of forgotten a little bit of that. I just remember like the core story elements. But man, even on the third read, you're like, damn, this is a good book.
This is an amazing story. And what you said right there, I also really agree with is I've read it probably twice all the way through, just over the years when I found out about it. But it is just, for a book as old as it is, because this I think was written in the 80s written by Alan Moore. And
I guess we should say that.
Yeah, and art by Dave Gibbons. When you on the surface level, it just looks like an old comic. But when you really dig into it and really just the dialogue and the like you said, the philosophies, everything, not only is it still just as like relevant today to kind of the real world stuff it's tackling, but that impact delivers way better than most modern comics that kind of try similar story ideas. I think that the characters are a big part of what gives this such a timeless feel. And if you do know a little bit of the history of how this came to be, it almost, I feel like, wouldn't have gotten there. Basically, when Alan Moore kind of had this idea of, and you spoke into it, of I want to write a comic, but where comics have grown up, you bring in like real world political everyday things that, okay, we've had decades at this point of superheroes saving the day and kind of the impact that it has on that fictional world. Well, what if you took superheroes but then kept our world as it is? Which this would have been a modern story at the time because it was in the 80s. And so, one, how does superheroes affect the course that we're on, but also how do we affect them? Like, because they are people and what's going on around them also has an impact on them. So what does that do? And kind of what does that lead into?
Who watches the Watchmen?
Exactly. So when he wanted to do this idea, he was working with DC, and DC had just acquired another comic publisher called Charlton Comics.
Vertigo?
No, Charlton Comics. It was just a completely different publisher. And when they, it's kind of like how Shazam is originally an asset of Fawcett Comics before DC bought that.
Okay.
So same idea. They got a bunch of characters when they bought Charlton Comics, and those were the characters that Alan Moore wanted to use, but DC didn't want him to use those because they're like, well, we want to use them for our things. And some of those characters you would now probably recognize if you know any of the stuff. So, and he basically took those characters and created stand-ins. So the comedian, for example, is actually Peacemaker, who we've seen in like the Suicide Squad and also got his own show. Night Owl is Blue Beetle. I think Silk Spectre is an amalgamation of like Black Canary and some other female DC characters. But all that being said, I think it was a good thing that he didn't get to use those characters.
Totally.
These characters to me are iconic, and I don't think that this story, while it still would have been great because it's the same story, I just don't know if it would have kind of held its popularity in quite the same way.
Yeah, so like you couldn't have people fighting in the streets and being like, that's not how Black Canary would act. It's like, I think I agree with you, like totally refreshing new characters. You can't really say it's not how they would act. It makes them feel just like alive.
Yeah, and it works as just this time capsule. Like we've had Watchmen stuff, a lot of Watchmen stuff as of recently, but it's either just been the movie that was essentially just this comic panel for panel, frame for frame, and then we got the follow-up show, which I really enjoyed. But yeah, by just having it be in this one contained world and it kind of maintain that for as long as it has, I think that is why the story is just held in such high regard, because there's not like an oversaturation of it at this point. And it's nice because then you get to use the other characters like Blue Beetle and Black Canary, and they get to kind of fit more in line with the more like flashy comic book stuff that we also enjoy. So Alan Moore is one of those writers who, if you've ever watched anything with him and just watched him talk about anything, he's one of the greats, but he also hates everything that he's ever done or has ever been adapted.
And he's a little crazy too.
He's a bit of a wizard. Yeah. I don't know. Just this is peak Alan Moore, and I think it's just because he just had his ideas and he loved getting those out there. And I think this was just one that at the time really meant something to him, because the writing in this is just so strong, and which is good because it's a lot of writing. It's a lot of dialogue in this. How'd you guys feel about that? Kind of going into such a dialogue heavy comic.
I mean, I knew I was getting into it because we read Swamp Thing, however long ago that was. But like, I'm very glad that comics figured out how to show and not tell as much. I mean, I don't think this story would have worked with less dialogue, but I'm glad that people figured out how to tell stories with less dialogue. One of my favorite authors, Underwater Welder?
Jeff Lemire, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a book with 100 words in it, and it's 100 pages long, and it still hits home. But this does it in the exact opposite way.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree
you guys
on the last point because I am a big time slut for dialogue.
Yeah,
that's why. That book you just described. No way, dude. I'm out.
Well, dialogue's fine and dandy, but then you have all these other side bubbles and journals, and I think it's more, maybe not so much that there's more dialogue, but they cram the dialogue too heavily into one frame. I think they could have spread it out to over 50 pages instead of 28. Have the same exact words, add more pictures, just declutter the frames a bit.
It very much fits
because it took away from the art from me.
Yeah, it very much fits in, I think, which would have been the standard layout and style of the time, which is it's still very much in its roots of you would pick up a comic at a newspaper stand. I mean, there's a kid that picks up plenty of comics at a newspaper stand in the story. So I think, yeah, just that idea of it's just the story of the week or story of the month. Whenever it comes out, you go, you pick it up, you read it, and you just put it down, and you don't look at it again for a very long time or ever. So maybe that is why they were so dialogue heavy. And also, I think as comics have evolved, they've changed how they deliver action, because the action in this, which is interesting, I imagine, for a superhero comic at that time, is it's not really about that. There are your set pieces, you obviously have the moment where Silk Spectre and nigh beat up those thugs, but yeah, the kind of comic booky action in this, it's few and far between, and then you have the dialogue is the main focus. And I totally agree with you and kind of how that affects the art in a negative way, because I think some of the best art in this is when it's just artwork, just these establishing shots. But
that final issue where it's 6 pages of just showing the city,
yeah,
is probably the best art in the whole thing, besides maybe the Mars book too.
And I would almost think I didn't get a chance to look into any interviews with Dave Gibbons and how he approached this, but it's almost like their jobs are to do different things. Whereas I think Alan Moore is primarily the one who's driving the plot and the characters and just that story that they're trying to tell, the more intimate story. Whereas the art comes in to just build out the world around them and show you why these characters are reacting the way they are, where the tension's at, what is it going to lead to. Because I think the sweeping kind of shots of the cities and just the characters, in a there's that famous kind of panel of Rorschach after he climbs the building that the comedian was thrown out of, and he's just on the window. That's probably has always been my favorite shot in this entire story. But it doesn't do anything for the story. It just goes to show you this is the world that they live in because of how superheroes have changed the course of history. This is what we're working with, and this is it's to give you a reason why these people are maybe the way they are.
Oh yeah. Every chapter up until I don't know, the last few, every issue until the last few is more so a character analysis of one of the 8 to 10 main characters.
Mm-hmm.
You like look into it's like, oh, this is how Doc Manhattan came to be and what's going through his brain. Rorschach's kind of the overarching narrator for most of the book, but he still gets his own book where you find out what makes him tick.
Mm-hmm.
You find the mom, you find Lori, whatever her name is, Yusha check. I don't know how to say that. Yeah, Jupiter.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, every chapter's while the story is going, it's also showing the background of what makes them tick.
Yeah.
Which fits. And then all the parts that I'm complaining about where you got the middle stuff in between actually like does matter as much as I hated reading it.
It is a very strong showcase of just how good writing can be when, there's not really an element that you take out of this and it makes it better. If anything, it makes it worse. Zach, you were, like you said, you're a slut for dialogue.
Big time slut, dude.
Reading this, kind of what is it about? Like, what? And you are a writer. We haven't even really mentioned that you've written a book with the sponsor of our show, Michael Lopez, and his boss Aaron Lopez. But as a writer, reading this, speak into that for me. Like, what is it for you that they're just like, they nail this element of writing so well?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always just really preferred character-driven, dialogue-driven stuff. And kind of Jared was touching on this with like they do the breakdowns of each character, and then when you read that, if you ever go reread their scenes, or even just going forward reading their interactions after those scenes, and seeing like they're having these philosophical disputes and complexities and all of that, but it all makes sense for their character. It's like, oh, this happened to them. This is the way they see the world now. This is why they're saying this, and you see it from all sides.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're in arguments, when they're agreeing, when they're like putting aside their differences for the greater good, it all just makes sense. And I really like scenes that build tension because the characters have differing wants. Like a really perfect example is just Game of Thrones, the scene with the Hound and Arya, when they're at that like restaurant, bar, whatever you want, tavern.
Mm-hmm.
And tensions are rising because it's like, oh, these Kingsguards are just messing with the Hound. And as it just develops into just absolute killing frenzy, everything about it makes sense. And so I think when you have strong characters like that, it makes you invest in them, not want them to die, and then be like, someone's fucking dying here. This is going to go south.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, like just the way you kind of put that and thinking about this story, that's why I think the finale of this works really well for me is you have those tensions just boil until you get to that moment where you have Ozymandias, his plan is laid out, and he even convinces Dr. Manhattan, like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to go with what you said because it is at this point, it's better to just have the common enemy. And then you have Rorschach, who, what I love about Rorschach is, like, it's what you said. I don't agree with Rorschach. In fact, I think he's a pretty bad dude. But you see why he got there. You see why he thinks the way he does. And you completely understand why he can't go along with that plan. And then it just comes to that final moment where he knows he can't stop it, but he knows he can't be a part of it. And then that just leads to Dr. Manhattan obliterating him. And
that's such a good scene.
It's a great scene. It looks amazing. And I genuinely feel sad, even though I don't think he's a good guy. And I don't know, like, as I get older, as I think about that moment, that's the kind of stuff I always pay attention to now, where it's just like, before as a kid, I would have been like, yeah, fuck that guy. But now it's just like, oh, like, I don't agree with him, but I do feel bad for him. Yeah. And then you also have like Night Owl, who was his friend, and he feels bad. Like, he feels guilty. He feels shame. And yeah, just like you said, all of these different ideologies and these different people who either went through the same experience and came out with a different kind of perspective, or just way more fucked up stuff happened to him. Like, they're all just trying to figure this out. And to see where we end up in at the very end of the story is already compelling. But then you go on like the final cliffhanger, which is the diary gets out. Yeah.
Well, that was the other thing. You're talking about like it being sad that he died, but then you're like the whole time through you were like reading his journal, and you're like, oh, I've read this entire thing that everybody's gonna see now because some dopey guy at a newspaper was like, hey, I need to fill a spot.
Yeah, just a random, could have just as easily been like, nah, trash everything in this box. We're not running any of this. And
they talked about like burning it.
Yeah. And what's also interesting about that, and we don't really get this in stories as much now, is the ambiguity of the ending of, like, it's not ambiguous that the story's going to get out because we see that's what's going to happen. But what is left ambiguous is what happens after. I think it's just kind of what we're playing with Watchmen these days now, is just taking that ending and jumping ahead, because we got the Watchmen TV show back in 2019.
Well, hold on before we talk about the show.
All right, what do you want me to hold on to this table?
Yeah, just hold on to that table. It'll be good.
Okay.
I had an idea just thinking about that. We're talking about the ambiguity of like the ending. I mean, towards the end, I think Ozymandias and Doc Manhattan are talking, and eventually like Manhattan realizes that even though he knows the future, he can't stop the future, and that's like a theme throughout the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Ozymandias, I know you think you like solved it. You did the big thing, and then they kind of realize like he was like, I kind of just kicked the can down the road.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of say that, and
yeah, I think they say nothing
in not so many words. It's the opposite of in not so many words.
Yeah,
and a lot more words.
Yeah,
which is cool. Now we can talk about the show if you want.
Well, just like that idea is basically what you were saying. It was just like, did you really make anything better? Is it going to happen anyway? And that is what they're playing with now, because the show kind of takes that in one direction. Around the time the show came out, I think DC was doing the first official like comic book sequel to Watchmen that tied into like your Superman stuff. It was called Doomsday Clock, and in that,
oh yeah, that was pretty bad.
I didn't finish it. The most interesting stuff I read in it was the actual Watchmen kind of post story stuff, because basically, and that's the setup of it, is I think it jumps ahead to the 90s in the Watchmen universe, and because the tapes came out, people over time just got pissed off at the government, and like it was just devolving into chaos in the States. And it introduced like some new characters. But yeah, just coming back to the story and just again how it ends, I really like that. I like, because of what this world is, it being so close to our own, but also you have that huge game changer of, yeah, but superheroes exist in it. What does that do to people, and what do these people do to the Watchmen? And I like how it affects even the quote-unquote greatest of us in this story, because it had been a while since I looked into the story. I completely forgot that the only one that has any powers is Dr. Manhattan. Everyone else is just like a regular person. So it makes sense that, like, well, yeah, these are just regular people who are doing something insane, like going out and trying to fight crime in ridiculous outfits. It would break them over time. But just to see Dr. Manhattan's kind of mental state in this whole story, from where he starts to where he was before he got the powers, and then where he ends up, where he's just like, you know what? I'm past this. I'm moving on. But to me, the way I always read it is there's always that part of is his name John
John Osterman.
Yes, there's always that piece of him that exists, just a little bit.
Oh yeah,
and I like that element too, because that is enough, I think, to mess with him. That's why I think Ozymandias' plan even manages to work. It's because he's not fully Dr. Manhattan. And there's just that one piece of him, his weakness, that can be twisted and tricked. So
yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things in the book. Like, if you kind of graft, like, here's John and then here's Dr. Manhattan, like, it's just kind of slowly falling as time goes. And I think the idea that, like, he has this moment of, like, it's borderline impossible that Laurie is born like this. Like, her mother is raped by the comedian, and then this happens. And so like, it kind of brings John back a little bit, but I just really like the idea that like it's just doomed to fail. Like you know, when you see a sign like that, you're cursed with apathy.
That was the other part that got me.
Yeah, nothing means anything to you if you can't experience it one moment at a time.
He's desperately holding on to who he was, like kind of off screen. Like you can see his struggles behind his face, but he never really like outright says like I'm losing who I am as a person, and I don't like that.
To just get to that point of like you don't care about anything, but you have all the power in the world to do anything. That's always been a really fascinating element of that character. This was really the first time anyone had done something like this, who had taken a character with like Superman level powers or greater, even because he's on like an atomic level. But yeah, that was the first time that anyone had kind of taken this idea of let's put someone with all the powers in the world to fix everything and just fuck with them until they don't care about anything. And that was one thing, again, like I think that the show did really well when they did bring Dr. Manhattan into it, is show that side of it of just like, if you get this power, you might, leading up to that, have all these grand ideas of how to fix the world. But then when you actually get it, you're just like, oh, the world is a speck in the cosmos. I'm moving on from this. And then that, unfortunately, that kind of fucks over the world anyway. So yeah, it really does, like you said earlier, it really just kind of makes you look at superheroes in a way of just like, oh, this isn't fun or hopeful.
Yeah, like you guys were saying when like Ozymandias is talking to Dr. Manhattan, he's like, did I fix everything? And Dr. Manhattan's like, no, dude, not really. Like nothing ever ends, because Dr. Manhattan sees like 400, 500, 600 years in the future where, he might intervene to save Lori and her kids, her grandkids. 10 generations down the line, Dr. Manhattan's going, who cares? I don't know those people.
No, it might as well be a stranger at that point to him. And like, there's no real stakes to him. It's just watching it happen. That's kind of what he's there to do, is just see how it plays out.
Well, that was the thing about his character for me, is like, we are on like an alternate timeline, basically, when he comes to being.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like normal, and then he gets turned into Dr. Manhattan, and then technology is pushed 50 to 100 years in the future.
Yeah.
Like that, because can just do anything.
Yeah.
And basically the forcing of that just made chaos happen quicker. I mean, obviously he's like a metaphor for the A-bombs or whatever, or the H-bombs or whatever,
for all the bombs,
and that sort of thing. And the US had those things, and so they're talking about how, because one country has this, every country is gearing up to potentially face them as best as they can, which leads to them almost having World War III.
Yes, which
and
is why
now we're talking about World War III in our world now. So,
and we don't even have a Doctor.
We don't have a Dr. Manhattan.
It's bullshit.
We did get Oppenheimer movie.
We do have a Cillian
so that's
Murphy.
about the same thing.
Yeah, that's something we got going for us. So you're right there. Yeah, that's a good point too. Talking about the technology thing, because basically by studying him and him helping out the states, they're able to, like you said, advance their technology. They've got electric cars and blimps just kind of hanging out everywhere, and I'm sure, especially back in the 80s, but even now, sort of, we think of this kind of peaceful utopia one day that we'll all have like clean, infinite energy and this and that. And even though they have the technology to do that, and they have the ability to kind of get to that point, the backdrop of this is just so depressing. Like it's almost like chaos just kind of finds a way to disrupt. No matter what the intentions are. And also you add this element of, they're probably not even pushing that side of it as much as they could. Like, I feel like if they really wanted to just focus on making the US just a wonderful place to live, they could have done that. Or what they can do is send that guy into Vietnam and just win that war real quick. And that's kind of their, that's what they have a focus on. And I think, like you said, it just leads to those really ever-growing tensions between the U.S. and the other countries.
It was like, we won before they won the war, supposedly he might have been involved with like killing JFK or something like that. One of them was Ozymandias or Manhattan. I can't remember.
The comedian is always the one that...
The comedian.
It's never... Depending on like what specific story you seem to read, he either did it or he didn't do it.
There's two people standing there or something like that.
Yeah.
Is what I remember, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, and well, even just kind of talking about like, again, how superheroes affect the world, like that's a huge element of this that sets it up. Nixon's on his 5th term, and apparently the reason being is because the comedian basically kept the Watergate scandal from getting out.
Yeah.
So I really like those elements, and again, I'm sure it wasn't really done in this way at the time, where it's like, how does this element affect the modern day?
It's like he kept Watergate from happening, and then Dr. Manhattan won the Vietnam War, so people were willing to let him run for a 3rd term, even though that's not allowed anymore.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
It wasn't allowed back then. We'll see where we end up.
Well, it was allowed
in recent.
It was allowed at one
future.
point.
We'll see where we go.
I mean, FDR had like
he had
4 terms.
Yeah,
but then they were like, maybe not. That's kind of like a king.
I think FDR was when like said to have more of this.
Yeah, but yeah, history's hard, guys. I haven't thought about this since, man, probably high school, like U.S. history.
And that's what's cool about Watchmen, man. Like, it makes you think about real life. Like,
yeah,
there's so many real life allegories for things that we see, like even today. Where you're like, Alan Moore, that dude's like a fucking nutso, but he kind of knew what he was talking about.
He mix and match so many stuff together. I do want to talk about the one funny thing that I saw. They were talking about Robert Redford becoming president or something like that, and like the tail end of the book or something like that.
Yeah,
and they're like, who would want a cowboy actor
person
to be president? And I was like, oh man, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah,
Ronald Reagan. The same letters even. I know Robert Redford's a real guy, but it's funny that it was like so close.
Yeah, Moore hated Reagan.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of this book is like critique of the 80s Reaganomics culture. Like, he said something about like Reagan fans think they're invulnerable and I'm here to show them they're not, or something along those lines. So yeah, like dude hated Reagan for sure.
I just noticed that at the tail end and I was like, that's probably what he was going for, but
yeah.
And then man, talking about what started that sentence, he's so good at putting stuff in that finds a way to fit in later.
Sowing a seed. Yeah.
So many seeds throughout the entire thing. And then once you see like Ozymandias lay out his plan, you're like, oh, he did that in the 1st issue. He did that in the 2nd issue, and so on and so on. And you're like, I saw him set up everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't see him actually do it until it got told to me.
Yeah. And it's, I know what you're going for. Kind of my,
and then Ozymandias caught a bullet.
Well, that was where I was going.
He said he caught a bullet.
It's such an offhand remark of just like, you can catch a bullet. It's like, probably. And then he actually needs to do it. And what I really like about this that I had forgotten about is, again, just like the only person with powers is Dr. Manhattan. So yeah, when he catches that bullet, it is a big deal. And I like how even to him, he's just like, I really didn't think that would work. He keeps his composure just because that's who he is. You know, he is a supervillain, but he is just like, all right, so I can do that. But even then, you think like, yeah, he probably only had one in him. Like,
yeah, he's got that whole thing running throughout, like the side stuff at the back issue stuff where he's talking about his like fight method. It's on the back of that other comic book that you're reading while you're reading a comic book. And it's like talking about physical and mental and meditation. And I chalk it up to like, he got one through all that, basically.
Yeah.
He got his one hit.
It was very much just like, I've got like a 50-50 shot, if that, of this working, and it does, and they just kind of move on from that. And
it kind of looked like he still got pierced by the bullet. It just like stopped in his hand.
I think he had like gloves on or something, so it kind of pads it a little bit
through, and still hit his chest because he had blood on his chest.
Yeah. I love moments like that, and then even like stuff with Rorschach, because that was kind of a really big reveal. Is like, well, who is this dude? And you can go back and see, like, he's in there from the very beginning. He might even be in the first panel.
He's the end is nigh guy.
Yeah. And so that was just really fun.
That was cool.
And I don't know, Zach, for you, like, what are the moments for you that just kind of cement this as a great story?
The moment is for sure I did it 35 minutes ago. Like, that is just a absolute genius subversion of expectations, because you're reading this comic book and you're like, oh, the good guys will save the city and everything will be fine. It's like, no, dude, this shit already happened. That to me is the moment where like Watchmen really solidifies itself as one of the greats.
It just did the one thing that never happens in any other book, where like,
if I can go ahead and do this, I'm doing it because that's what I like. That's the whole point. There's no need to give him a chance to stop me.
Bad guy, air quotes, if you can even call him that. I guess.
Man,
in any other book, he would be the bad guy.
That's why there's no real good guy.
There's no bad guy.
Like, the shittiest dude might be Rorschach, and he's kind of Batman-esque.
Yes, he's
definitely Batman.
Well, so he's based off The Question, which if you've ever seen if you look up The Question, he was in like the Justice League cartoon when we were kids.
He had a mask with a question mark on his head. Face.
He does. He has no face. Yeah, look him up. He's a really good character. Yeah, but he does very much have this Batman tendencies. If Batman was, and I think someone else said this, so I can't take credit, but basically someone was just like, yeah, the only reason Batman isn't Rorschach is because he has money. It's like, if he was just a homeless vagrant like this guy,
a poor guy,
he'd be probably insane. Well, insane in a different way. But yeah, it's one of those things, and I'll never get it just because the story was so old when I even found out about it. But God, it must have been such a good reveal to see who the villain and the quote unquote villain in this actually was. My first exposure to this story would have been the movie, the Zack Snyder movie. And I think overall that movie is pretty decent. But one thing that it does not do well is the reveal, because I can't remember the actor who plays Ozymandias, but like, it's something about the way that he plays it, or just the way they light that character. He's the villain from the moment he shows up on screen. Yeah. Whereas in this, because of Dave Gibbons' art, it's always... I haven't read a lot of stuff that Dave Gibbons has drawn on, but what's interesting to me about his art is just the everyday people. They look just so normal and mundane. And so Ozymandias being in the story for the majority of it, I would have never have assumed he was the guy behind all this.
Bright and purple and stuff like that.
Yeah. And even when it flips and you finally get the moment of like, oh no, he's behind all this, his demeanor changes a little bit. But like Zach said, he's not a true villain in a sense of, he doesn't think what he's doing is evil. He's not doing it for evil means. He's trying to do, because he is the smartest man alive. So he sees this as, this is the only way I see this going well. Like, given our options, given what we have to do, this is the best option for humanity. So yeah, of course he would see himself as a hero. And of course he would be able to kind of keep that hidden and maintain it, because if you don't think what you're doing is evil from the get-go, it's probably pretty easy to convince other people that you're on the side of good.
He has honestly a strong argument. Like, it's not as direct as, like, if I put you in a room where there's a red button, and if you press the button, you're going to kill 100,000 people. If you don't press the button, everyone in South America dies tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, you're killing 100,000 people, but you're saving, 1 billion. And we see him a little bit differently because he's taking such a different, like, active role. No one forced him into this. but he kind of sees himself forced into it just because he's so smart and he sees where everything is going. So from his perspective, he's like, yeah, I'm in the room with the button and I'm going to hit it.
Yeah. And no one can give him an argument that's better just because he knows and everyone else knows no one's smarter than him. So
I even got smart enough to know that Doc Manhattan wouldn't care enough to save the world if it came down to that.
yeah, it's the one guy who could have, in a way, taken on, this all-powerful godlike being and come out with, the result he wanted.
All those dang tachyons.
Yeah, one thing that they did keep as far as like superhero stuff at the time that I think just when you put it into this kind of awful, real world setting that they have is just the character designs are great because of how ridiculous they look. Like Ozymandias' costume is still probably one of the worst superhero costumes I've ever seen, but I also really think there's a charm to that in a way.
I mean, it looks like 80s superhero costumes.
Yeah. It's got the Egyptian, kind of inspirations to it, but yeah, just
they pick a theme and then they just make it like it's like make me Egyptian but gymnastics.
Well, it's important to be flexible out on the streets when you're punching thugs. Yeah.
There's something about the comedian's outfit that I just hate. I just hate everything.
Which is it like 3 times throughout the book too.
Yeah.
At first he's like in a yellow suit where his face is out with just like a little raccoon mask or something like that. It might only be, he might only have 2. But then he turns into like almost like a gimp suit like mask after that with like a little bit of red, white, and blue.
Yeah. It's an awful that costume in particular, you're right, is terrible.
But then like his final costume's like a slightly US version of what he's got.
I think the point of that, because he is really the only person you see that has multiple costumes. I like you see Sally Jupiter and her mom, like their kind of differences, which that would have been more of an era thing. But I think what's interesting about the comedian, because we haven't really talked about him yet, and he is the whole thing that kicks this off with his death.
Oh yeah, he died. That's the button with the
blood and the smiley face. Yeah.
Yeah.
It which might be the most iconic part of his costume. There.
Sure.
But what I find really intriguing about the comedian is how he came up in this world and also how young he was when he did it. I didn't really think about this at the time because the comedian was a young hero with the first group of, I think they were called the Minutemen, which would have been like Hooded Justice, the original Silk Spectre, Sally Jupiter's mom. Like
he's the only hero that spanned the entire
he crossed
story.
over. Yeah. And I think the point of that being is to show, if you're in this long enough and you're doing the things that these people are doing, but again, these are just regular people in our world, it will break you down. And it broke him down to the point where he, it's kind of his whole thing is he's just like, I'm the comedian because I'm the only one who sees the world for the joke it really is. You can hide behind all this valor and these costumes, but everyone's awful. Everyone's just trying to get ahead and they don't care who they kill to do it. And it broke this man who started out as like a Robin aged kind of superhero who, even though we don't see it, I would imagine did that because he saw something in being a superhero, something good. He's like, I want to do good. And it just tore him down. And then he started taking on kind of the government work. He may or may not have killed JFK, but even that broke him to the point where when he found out about Ozymandias' plan, he had to go because
I put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, and I don't think he's a character, even though he was as awful as he is, I don't think Ozymandias saw him as someone he could win to his side, which is interesting because that implies that he would have maybe sold him out and in a way done the right thing, or what he saw as the right thing. So he had to go.
That's what I like about the comedian is I think unarguably the biggest asshole in the entire book. And there are a lot of douchebags in Watchmen. But he's also kind of the most nuanced, where it's like like you said, like even he's like, this is wrong. I can't do this, and kind of goes back to Ozymandias being like, I have to blow up New York or throw a squid on it because it's going to save the world. Like everyone thinks they're doing the right thing, including to an extent the comedian who knows for the most part what he's doing is wrong, but when it crosses his line, he's like, this is fucked. I'm gonna have to step in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the people that are really doing the right thing are Night Owl and Lori, who just want to be superheroes, have sex, and get a really bad blonde haircut at the end of the book.
In a way, it's what we all want.
Yeah, exactly. They nailed it.
Yeah.
I wonder if Steph was laughing at me or something else.
Think what's interesting is like the most popular characters from the book, like Dr. Manhattan, Rorschach. The average person is definitely Night Owl and Lori, like you said. Like they're the ones whose morality changes with new information and new situations. Where like Rorschach is someone that we don't want to be him, but we respect that like he has his ideals and he's like, no, I'll die for this shit. I don't care. And no one is really like that, at least that I know.
He's just fun because he lets me see the mystery unravel. He's always at the new piece, basically.
Yeah.
He's kind of the audience stand-in, but also not. I don't know. Everybody's a little bit of both of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all, a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, a little bit of superhero, a little bit of regular person. Man, books are crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. Like Rorschach became the most popular, like kind of iconic guy because Alan Moore is like, he's quoted saying like, if you think Rorschach is like, if that's your favorite character, you're a fucking moron. I hate you. Like, I see where he's coming from. Like that is the most two-dimensional of all of them.
He said something one time. I don't remember exactly how it went, but he basically was just like, I've had people come up to me in the street and tell me, Rorschach is my favorite comic or favorite character of all time, and he's like, and I try very quickly to get away from those people, something like that. Just like, is in basically like, yeah, you missed the entire point of this guy, but and I need to get away from you. And you guys kind of talking about just all these characters and all the elements that they all share, and me thinking about why they're different. Coming back to Silk Spectre and Night Owl. I think it's just time because in the main story, they're the only two legacy characters that we have. They're the only ones who took on a mantle that a previous person had. She took over from her mom. He took over from the original Night Owl. So they were already kind of green coming in on the back end of the superhero era. And then it got shut down by the government. So then they've just been in retirement for however many years. And they, at least Night Owl, I can't remember as much with Sally right now off the top of my head, but he kind of has like a need to get back into the game. Like it's like almost he needs this for him. But then very quickly, after going through all this, by the end of it, they're just crying on the cold floor in the Arctic, just like, this is the last thing I want to do now. So yeah, I think they're the lucky ones. I think that they were able to do it at a time that it was already fading out. Then they got a taste for it again, and then once they got that, they quickly realized, oh no, like this is a drug that I don't need to hit. And then they try to go back to normal lives and hopefully live happily together. But it is sad to see all the other characters who were just, because Rorschach is the reason why Rorschach's even like on the radar of all these other people is because he never gave it up, even though he was supposed to.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about that element.
He was vigilanteing after the Keene Act.
Yeah, he like, unless it's kind of like the Civil War stuff in Marvel. Unless you're
Dr. Manhattan or the comedian, like you're not supposed to be doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this breaks people, and that wasn't really a thing that you showed in superhero comics. It was kind of like, as a reader, this is the ideal life that you want to have. You want that secret identity. You want those powers. You want to be going out at night, saving people. But in reality, in our reality, to do this is just,
it'd fuck you up. And that's perfectly sad.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that like hit him, that made him, or at least Night Owl, realize that he didn't want to do it anymore or something like that, was when him and Lori beat up those guys in the alleyway. They were like some knothead gang or something like that. And they were like, oh, that's that Night Owl guy that beat us up. We'll just go kill that guy. Because they know it from his book that it was the old guy, and that's why he died.
Yes, yeah.
He died because the other guy did it, and no one knew who he was.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even know that's the reason why
The original
mentor
Night
died.
was killed, yeah.
Because he's pissed off in Ozymandias' little lair thing, talking about like, Hollis has been dead.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, it I know he
Breaks
thought
on
it'd
the
just be a
inside.
simple, just a simple thing. He just wanted to get a boner in
And then
it, That's all. It's just, I don't know. I feel for him. I really do. And I'm
They
glad
gave
he
him a
did get
nod
that
with-
boner
I mean,
again.
we said like the plot starts off when Doctor Manhattan, when the comedian dies. Nah, dude, it starts off when Night Owl can't get hard. That's when we get into that stuff.
That's when the real emotional stakes come
I
out.
forgot about that. And they're watching the news the whole time. She gets in there, right? I think
Yeah,
by the end
yeah,
of
yeah. They eventually get there, which is kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
And
because
then
they
by
don't
the
start
pool,
until he
too.
puts on the suit.
Yeah,
It's like-
it's kind of like
Mhm.
I don't know, foreplay or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
weird that like it breaks people, but also like Alan Moore says, like it gets Night Owl over his mental blocks. It's implied not to be like a physical issue. It's all in his head.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just something. It was that part of him that, and I think it comes down to just he had to give it up, that he wasn't ready to. And I think by the end of it, after going through what he did and losing Rorschach, that was when he was able to get that closure of like, okay, I'm hanging this up again, but it's because I'm ready to do that. Going into the ambiguity, this doesn't really seem like a universe that gets a true happy ending. Like we said, you kind of are just kicking the can down the road. Something, or either this will come up again or something like it. But I do hope that at least for a little bit, those two in particular can kind of just settle down and enjoy their lives for a bit. Because I do care about these characters. It's one of those things that I don't really ever need a sequel to Watchmen. I don't think anyone ever needs that.
though.
But I do, I want to imagine a world where it's like those two are happy, like the world's
You
getting a
mean
little
like
bit better.
You mean like
Because
a
I care about
connected
these
sequel
characters.
instead of just, you mean a connected sequel instead of just an end universe sequel? Because I mean the show is like a direct continuation.
Yes, yeah. I think the show was the best thing they could have done, and that's very surprising because I thought for sure that show would be a train wreck, but it's actually a
so
really
good.
great show for me.
For me,
And the
I'm
real twist,
personally
it was
never gonna
filmed in
watch
our
the show.
hometown.
Okay.
I mean, I've read it 3 times. I love the idea. It's kind of like, when people are talking about horror movies and they're like, there's nothing scarier than what's in your head. That's why, like, blacked out screens with music and the tension building, like, that's kind of the scariest part.
Yeah.
To me, the ambiguity of the ending means, like, the most interesting part is, like, you just thinking about it.
Mhm.
I don't really want to know what some show writer has to think about it. I don't really care.
Yeah.
To be fair about the show, it's set in the world. They're coming up with their own like story just tied to a universe that already existed.
Yeah.
They're not really continuing the ambiguity of the ending of this story.
Yeah. I
I just get to
like
talk about squids more.
that is one thing I could say about the show, that they had the balls to bring the squid in. The movie wouldn't do it, but we haven't really talked about that whole element of it, and I'm not sure.
I gotta say, real quick,
Yeah.
there is no creative in the world, and I don't like to talk shit about a lot of creatives. I fucking despise Zack Snyder. I think he's just a horrible, horrible artist. The only 2 things that he did that were okay are Watchmen and 300, which
Yeah.
are just 1-to-1 remakes. And the moments he gets off the rails on his own thing, he fucks it up, and I hate Zack Snyder.
What's the end of the movie? Isn't it like Dr. Manhattan gets really huge, his penis is swinging around and then explodes or something like that?
Depending on the
He's
version,
messing with
yeah.
Adrian.
Sometimes,
Which admittedly, like before the big dick scene, like that part's kind of cool.
yeah.
Yeah, big swinging giant blue penis guy.
Yeah, I mean we've all
That's actually the only part of the movie I remember.
We've all dreamt about that. Yeah.
that's the power fantasy,
Yeah.
Because he-
No,
But that scene is cool. Like before, when he's talking to Adrian, he's like, the first thing I ever learned to do is reassemble myself. And The world's smartest man poses no more threat to me than the world's smartest termite. That's some cool shit.
Oh yeah, that was in the book too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It I like the way you kind of said that though, Zach, of because you're right. You this story works so well as just a one-off that you don't have to look into anything official or unofficial. If that is the ending that you want, or just like you want to leave it open-ended, I think you should. I really say that as someone who really liked that show. But yeah, if I totally agree with that thing of like whatever's in your head is always going to be the better option. And it just makes you think about the original story so much more of like, yeah, like what is the message of all this? Where does it go? Does it have to go anywhere? I don't know. I never really thought about that. So yeah,
that's what I like that
I'll
part
watch the
too.
movie again.
I don't think it's even officially published at the end of the book. Like they tell the kid pick a story, and it's the first.
No, the last page is him putting the hand on the shirt on the journal.
Yeah, but you like he could pick it up, read it, and be like, "This sucks. This is fiction. Get this bullshit on my face and toss it."
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It and again, I think we don't get that as much these days. And it's not like you need it in every story, but
it's kind of like Inception.
I think with just such an emphasis on franchise building at whenever the conception of everything, whereas back then it worked the way it did is just like, hey, we need stories. Do you have a story? Yeah, I've got one, and it's just the one. Okay, great. We need a story. Let's publish it. That's just what we're doing. And that's all the intention was. This. I think to this day, this story has never been out of print, which is
there's 2 million copies apparently.
Yeah, but that was not the goal. The goal was just we need a story. Alan Moore, his goal was to tell this story, and it became what it has. But that was never. This was never the end goal. I'm sure he had dreams that one day 3 dudes would talk about it on a podcast, but he never really knew it would go that way. So it just did. That's beautiful.
These specific dudes.
Yeah.
In the town of where they filmed that one episode of the sequel show.
Yeah, that's right.
Right in our downtown strip.
Right in our backyard.
ZB.
Yeah. Right in our backyard
He
fair.
knew it all. He really is documenting that, and he's like, I see the future.
I saw the popcorn machine.
I see it inside my crystals that I have at home.
Right next to the Walking Dead zombies.
You guys touched on something that I just think is really sad and got to shout out, where I read something where all top 10 movies this year, like by box office, were all sequels. And then something like 13 of 15 are all sequel. And
Nice.
man, that's depressing. There's no more single stories anymore.
There's just not, man, there's just not people like you out there.
People
like I told
us.
you the other day, I just can't come up with stories. You see what I did there? I said something really nice about you, but connected it to our conversation.
Yeah,
that actually goes against my narrative. I've been spreading this lie that you just talk mad shit about me to my face. Like every morning I wake up to a text from Jared that's like, "You suck."
Eat shit,
yeah,
Zach.
eat shit and die. It's been getting me a lot of sympathy. So I'm gonna need you to not.
I'll tone it back. All right. Good thing I know what I'm going to say at the end of this podcast episode now.
Only nice things. Well, I don't think I have anything left to really add on to. Obviously, you guys speak into anything else you want.
Did you watch the animated thing? And by that, did you read the first 6 issues of the book?
The same thing. But yes, I did watch part 1 of the animated thing that they did. Did you know about this, Zach, that they did?
Not until today.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, well, go ahead, Higgins. Tell them about it.
I had seen it on there, and I thought it was like some other thing connected to the universe or something like that. But they basically did what they did with Uzumaki, where like some guys were like, "What if we just turn this comic book into a slightly animated version of what the comic book was?" Because they straight up at some points just put comic book panels in there.
They do a bit of that, yeah.
And then
that's a cool style thing.
I mean, they're literally just giving you the story, but where you don't have to read.
Well,
and on it,
some of it. It's only part 1 out right now.
It's only
but
1 through
it
6
is,
right now.
Yeah, it's just they end when it ends when Rorschach gets captured and they pull the mask off, and it's that kind of. I'm not in the industry, so I don't know the proper terms, but it's kind of, to me, that 3D cell shaded kind of CGI animation.
It's not my favorite animation.
It does not look that great with the people, but I think the exteriors and the establishing stuff is just it's really nice.
It does make it look a little cheesy.
Yeah.
You can tell they skip corners, like with the guys talking and stuff like that.
The voice acting's pretty good, though.
Oh no, not the words are fine. I'm talking about the looks of the guys.
Yeah.
Don't always look like they match up.
I don't know who does Rorschach, because that was always going to be the one I'm just like the most interested to see how this delivers. And
He sounds like Batman.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. We didn't talk about that. It's been on my mind the whole
time
episode.
Okay.
Every like media version of Rorschach's mask is like constantly changing,
and
that's just not in the book. The reason he's got different like blots on his mask is because he's got 20 different drop zones with his different masks that he made from this dress in his early days. So people think it's changing, but he just like grabbed a mask from a different spot, because they're like,
I'll admit, I thought
somewhere in the middle. They're like, I gotta find my suit in the floor or something like that, and I got one over there by this trash can. But like in all the other stories, they make it to be like some like mystical like mask that changes.
I think it's one of those like heat things where when you breathe hot into it just kind of makes the ink move. I think it's how like they make the mask now, like in real life.
I do know that he did have a bunch of those like drops.
More importantly, Higgins, though, what did you see in that mask when you looked at it?
I don't know.
A butterfly?
That is one of my favorite jokes. Like, someone posted a picture of the mask.
I don't remember.
And they were like, why did Alan Moore make his face my parents fighting?
That was my coworker just showed me this SNL skit with like Bill Burr. And he's like in a therapist's office, and they're showing him these like supposedly like Rorschach tests.
Yeah.
And then it's just like a cartoon version of like Olaf stealing Elsa's bra, and she's holding her big naturals. The first one was like Mike Wazowski's like in a wedding veil and like a white thong, and he's like, that's Mike Wazowski with cheeked up with a thong. And then at the end of the skit, he's like, what are you talking about, dude? It's just a butterfly. And then it shows it, and it's like a Rorschach that looks like a butterfly. And it was gold. And I'm just glad I saw that right before talking about Rorschach so much.
I'm glad that you saw that before talking.
You guys can look that up.
Much.
We'll put a link in the bio.
Yeah, Mike Wazowski big naturals for sure.
No, it's Elsa big naturals.
Oh, my
Mike Wazowski's cheeked up.
That's what you're seeing when you look at that mask.
He's got white pumps on too.
Dude, every time I watch Monsters Inc., that problem with the Night Owl's hard-on problem totally fixed.
Totally fixed now.
Yeah, Mike Wazowski walks on screen like, what's getting on here?
It's like they're not showing it, but I know what he's got back there.
Just give me a moment. Give me and Mike a moment.
Turn those lights down low when you leave.
Oh man.
All right. Well, we've watched plenty of men do so many things.
Do you want to talk about our sponsor real quick before we do another thing?
Please not end on a joke about us jacking off to Mike Wazowski.
Or do you want to talk about our drink real quick?
Well, let's do things in somewhat this order. Let's review the book. Say any other final thoughts we have. We'll go around the room. After that, we could talk about our sponsor, and then we could talk about a drink. Maybe while we talk about other things, if Zach has time. If not, that's okay. Okay, he said he's got time, Higgins. There's time now. All right. So, well, I guess I'll start first. Obviously, I like this book. It's not like a surprising revelation for anyone who's ever read this book, but it's got some great stuff in there. We didn't talk about the pirate bit. You don't have to really talk about that.
I was going to talk about it.
I I think it's fine. But
I
again,
really
really
like
like the story. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it 10 out of 10 men. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. No, I was going to talk about the pirate book very briefly.
Okay.
I really liked what it did. I hated reading it because it was in all that old timey language, and it kind of broke up the book. But I did like that every time I read a part, the next dialogue bubble basically said what that bubble did, but in their universe.
Oh yeah, there is a bit of that. Yeah. Did you like the part where that kid died while he was reading it? Because he got killed by a big squid.
Yeah, he kind of got killed by the big blast.
Mm.
That's the other thing about the animated show. In the comic book, he looks like a cool kid with a nice cabbie hat that's just reading comic books. But in the animated version, they gave him those nerdy glasses with a tape in the middle, and I'm like, what the heck, man? It's like this Bernie guy was rad, and then you turn him into a nerd because he likes comic books in your comic book movie. It's
That's
like, what kind of
the animators
assholes are
think about
you?
it. They're like, fuck you specifically.
Fuck you for liking what you're watching. You big
That actually is
nerd.
Alan Moore's message to anyone who reads his stuff, to be fair. So
And for that, I give it like I don't know, midnight or some 35 minutes before midnight.
okay.
Something like that. I don't know.
That's a good score.
And a couple cans of beans.
Sounds really good. Yeah.
Unheated.
All right. Well, that's good stuff. Zach,
'Cause it's
how
not
you
needed.
feeling? What you thinking?
I mean, it's the best comic related thing that I've ever read. Like, I've tried to dabble in Daredevil, Batman, some of those like older ones, those graphic novels. They don't grab me nearly as good as Watchmen does. So, on a scale of comic book rankings, I'll give it a 10.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you're only going to read one comic in your life, this would probably be the one to just go
That's
all
an
out on.
interesting point because it actually, like, you guys have seen Unforgiven, right?
Yes.
It's kind of the
Unforgiven.
Unforgiven of comics, in my opinion, where it's such a meta commentary that a lot of people would say it's the greatest, just like a lot of people say Unforgiven's the greatest, even though like it's
What's that?
such a subversion.
The song? The
Hmm?
movie? What's Unforgiven?
The movie of
Off the
Clint
top of my
Eastwood.
head.
Mhm.
With who?
Clint
Clint
Eastwood.
I don't know that
Oh, dude, it's
I might
so
not have seen
good.
it.
That movie
Is
is
that a
perfect.
Western?
Yeah.
It's the Watchmen of Westerns, Higgins.
Okay. I don't
It's
watch
kind of
Westerns,
like a
but maybe I'll watch it.
commentary of Westerns. Though. Like this is kind of, I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but this is kind of a cool story where Clint Eastwood, he was 35 and he had just done Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and he's at like kind of the peak of his Western fame. Someone showed him the script for Unforgiven, which is about like this 55-year-old man who's lost his gunsling abilities and he's still just like mean as hell, but he's not a hero. He's like kind of a snake-ass character. And Clint Eastwood loved it so much, he said, I'm going to buy the rights to this, sit on it for 15, 20 years, and then I'm going to do it. And that's what happened.
Oh, I
And then he
took the
made
long
Gran
game.
Torino, which is like the modern day version of what you just said.
Gran Torino's great. That's a great film.
It is. I do wonder. Part of me wonders if he just wanted to make that movie to have permission to say a bunch of slurs. But
Probably.
Clint Eastwood doesn't need permission. Clint Eastwood's walking around muttering those words.
that's true. It could have just started out as he was doing it anyway, and they're like, maybe we should just like film this and just turn it into something. I don't know.
This
He
is
had a good-
Clint Eastwood in a Vietnamese neighborhood.
He learned a lesson at the end. It had a good message, but
The message was
Yeah.
it's good to die a racist.
yeah. It's better than like some of his more recent output where he just wants to be a drug mule and have a threesome not once but twice in the same movie.
Man,
What
I
all
never watched-
90-year-old men do on average.
I never watched that one.
Me neither.
It's
I watch
a movie.
movies.
I've got a movie I can talk about later. Okay,
yeah.
so I think rating. We got ratings all across the board. I'm all feeling pretty good about that. Let's take a moment. Higgins needs to maybe
I'm just
yell at
gonna
his
let the cat out. I'm just gonna let the cat in because he's
He's getting antsy.
like climbing on the window.
That's impressive.
While he's doing that, I can actually pitch the sponsor, and if it sucks, you guys can just cut it.
I love that idea. And so go ahead. You'll probably do a better job than we ever have.
So this book is produced by 008 Studios. I actually don't know if he prefers it pronounced 008 or 008 or however he prefers it.
I think it's 008, or at least that's what I've always gone with. But yeah, you got your book right there for a few days more with the logo and everything. Look at that.
Yeah, there's the studio logo. So this one specifically is a grimdark Western fantasy, kind of like if you read like Red Country by Joe Abercrombie, Low Country by Morgan Shank, a little bit of Western flair like Blood Meridian, those kind of books, Lonesome Dove. Dark as hell, a lot of banter, a lot of action, a lot of blood, but 008 is doing a lot of cool stuff right now. I'm beta reading one that should be out next year sometime, kind of a noir Sin City-esque book. There's a wide variety of stuff that Michael is really producing, and I think 2025 you're gonna see a lot of cool stuff from the studio.
Yeah, we'll maybe be seeing one from you, right? Because Higgins, I think, has been beta reading one of your books. Did you have anything you want to kind of tell us about that, if you can? If not, no worries.
That is unrelated to 008. I did just finish the sequel to this, the first draft.
Okay.
So what I'm working on right now, and I'll pull up a picture, it's called Whispers of the Storm. And it's kind of like Name of the Wind, where it's, I call it a backwards narrative. Some people call it a frame story, where the idea is this character named Redlin is kind of a legendary figure in some sort of war. There was some kind of conflict, and some mysterious events happened. He turned from hero to villain, and it actually starts off with him getting arrested, and on his way to the noose, he's got like a biographer with him, and he's kind of chronicling his whole story from start to finish, where he's like, here I am as a kid who was dropped off at this warrior school, and then here's what happened. And then as it goes up, it's going to ramp up in both scale and also like we're going to see the rise and fall.
Okay. It's kind of like the Emperor's New Groove. It's like, I bet you're wondering how I got here.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
nice. That's a sneak peek just for you, Snoop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
but the sequel for a few days more will be produced by 008 Studios. First draft was finished 2-3 months ago, maybe. So hoping sometime May, June, July, probably at the latest release.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Here's a question I have that you might be able to speak into. You have done a book with Michael before. We've talked about kind of what Michael does and, you know, why he's a good person to do that with, but what can you kind of just your experience, like what has been good working with Michael and 008 Studios that you might not have gotten if you self-published through an Amazon or, you know, whatever that world entails?
Yeah, I mean, first off, Michael's chill as hell. Like I've talked to him at like 3 a.m. about random just book-related stuff. And he just kind of knows what he's talking about, where he's like, here's some marketing things we do. You know, we go through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, NetGalley, some shit I've never heard of, but has generated a decent number of sales. As well as, you know, like Michael might not like me saying this, but they do cover some of the costs, like, you know, the editing they paid for and all that. Like, and the revenue split, I won't go into the exact details. It's very generous for the author. So it's just been a really good experience working with them. I'm going to stick around for this, like, just stick with them. And if anyone listening to this has a near finished book, I'd say hit him up. You know, he's looking, and he's a great fit for any kind of indie authors who are getting their feet wet.
Yeah,
I am in the Discord because we're connected to it, and I do see people talk about writing stuff. I don't read much of the Discord conversations, but they seem like they're good.
Yeah, it's been kind of a blast because like every 2 months we do a writing competition, and like let's say it's, you know, us 3. If I wrote 500 words that day and Jared's like, I got 650, I might be like, well, fuck that. I can beat Jared. I can log on and do 200, 300 more.
Okay.
Bang out a couple more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's actually been, it's kind of like a petty reason, but it works.
Yeah. And it just kind of helps. You're helping others help yourself and vice versa. Like,
yeah. And then once the words are written, it doesn't really fucking matter if they're written while you were, I gotta beat this motherfucker, or like, you know, you're having a good day. It doesn't matter which way it came about as long as they're there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I specifically remember reading some competition like chats between you guys, and someone was like, I wrote 9,000 words, and you're like, I wrote 7,000, but I finished my book, so I guess I can't win. And then you came back and was like, well, I do have this other book I'm writing now, so I guess I could add a few more.
That's JC. JC's a fucking nutso, dude.
Yeah.
I love JC, but like, I'll be like, I got 600. JC's like, I did 8,000. What the fuck was that?
I don't want to brag, but give me about 10 seconds in Chat GPT, and I could probably beat that.
Yeah.
But no, Michael's. I have really enjoyed learning more about Michael's business and kind of what he's offering, and a big part of that is collaboration. And community, and you're just not gonna get that from a Jeff Bezos. He's too busy being on one of his super yachts that's stacked up on top of another super yacht.
He's too busy being Ozymandias.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Rules, once again, if everyone listening to this has like a near finished or even like just partly finished book that you're working on, hit him up, join the Discord, just come chat with some writers and have fun.
Hang out with ZB Steele. World famous. And definitely keep an eye out for your other things you're up to. Read his first book for a few days more. I will leave a link to 008 Studios in the podcast description notes. You can click on that link, check out all of what Michael's done, and like Zach said, just hit him up if you're in this world looking to make your big release.
Yeah, read that book. I have 3 copies on my bookshelf.
Oh my God, has he signed all 3?
I don't think he signed any of them.
Oh, Trouble in Paradise.
I charge a lot of money for that, so
yeah,
that's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
Michael kind of signed his book that he wrote for us.
That's true. That's true. Wow. You always need to be carrying one of those on you just in case you run into Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should really be the key of your wedding. Is like, we got to get some signatures.
Oh yeah, I'll bring it with me for
there you
that.
Go.
That'll be good.
We got a plan. Well, excellent. Well, let's
talk about a drink real quick. Talk about the drink real quick.
Let's talk about a drink real quick. We had one.
I know we're so wrapped up in such a good book that I forgot to bring it up. I wasn't even gonna drink one,
but
it looked good, and I wanted to.
Was it good?
And I was sick for like the past 4 days, so I was like, you know what? I earned one.
It's true.
And I typed in atomic bomb cocktail into Google, and what do you know? It was the first result. Atomic bomb number 1.
Was that your first Google search? I would have gone for like giant squid just to see.
This was my very first Google search.
Okay.
It just felt like the right thing.
Yeah. No, if it feels right, then it is.
Doc Manhattan, all that jazz.
Oh shit! Yeah, you could have made Manhattans.
We've made Manhattans before. I love a Manhattan.
Did you like this drink though? This A bomb.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Atomic
what was it?
Bomb number 1. It was a beer of your choice. Technically, probably not a stout. It suggested a lager, but it said you can mix and match around. You do about 2/3 of that of a beer, and then you put like a shot of lime juice, a shot of lemon juice, and a shot of tequila, and a splash of salt, a dash, like a little, what's it called? Salt man.
Just a little salt dash. And that's going to split the particles in that A-bomb and just blow up right in your mouth. And it's going to be sour as hell.
It's really sour. I'm wondering if it was because I used real lemon juice.
Freshly squeezed.
It's
true.
But yeah, it was really good. I liked it. I could next time I might do half the amount of citrus.
I think, kind of thinking of it just now, I don't think we drank it right because it's a bomb. So we should
no. I don't think it's a.
Think about it though.
It is technically, but it didn't tell me to drink it like that fast.
But I feel like that's just implied with the name.
It was a good sip and drink though.
It wasn't bad as a sipping drink. I would have liked it to be colder.
Yeah.
Something about like a warm lemon juice. It just felt
I would have put ice in it, but it was a beer.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
No. It wasn't the worst way to experience it. But
maybe I'll do a chill glass next time. If I ever make it next time.
I feel like you would make
it's an easy
way
way to get more alcohol in you. It's like, oh, you have a beer? Why not add a shot of tequila to it? Maybe splash some lime in there.
That's a good point. Yeah, perfect for the summertime. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be the most alcohol.
Like you can only have one drink. Oh no, it's terrible.
Tequila.
There's some
do it right.
alcoholic guy on TikTok, and he like people are like, this guy has a problem. He wears a sailor hat. You guys might have seen him,
This guy has the solution. My goodness.
but he like has gotten to the point where he adds Everclear to the bottom of his glass and then pours his like actual alcohol into it
Okay.
and then drinks the whole thing.
No.
Everclear is
just
like
no.
straight
Yeah. no.
alcohol.
No.
But yeah,
I don't want to
we
tell
didn't do that.
people how to do life, but I will tell them when life is done wrong, and that's just no. But
Yeah, but this one,
new cat, don't you
Try
eat
it
those
once.
cookies? Shame on you. Bulking for winter. Zach, what drink did you have?
yeah. What are you
tonight?
drinking on?
So I have a mildly interesting story where I used to drink Grey Goose vanilla a lot, and it got discontinued like 6 years ago. I didn't know, so I just been drinking like the last of the bottles just willy nilly. Had no idea. But to celebrate for a few days more, my wife and I actually made like this is just a normal bottle of Grey Goose.
Yeah.
And then we distilled like 6 or 8 like real Madagascar vanilla beans in there. So now it is Grey Goose vanilla.
Wow.
And I always just mix it with Dr. Pepper. And that's kind of my go-to staple drink right
No
now.
Dr. Pepper, huh?
Yeah, it just tastes like if you ever had those Dr. Pepper vanillas, it just tastes exactly like that. Like it's smooth as shit, but it packs a punch.
Yeah, God, honestly, that sounds lovely. I love a vanilla soda. It's really the only kind of soda I want. If I was just gonna drink a soda by itself, something like that.
Yeah,
I really like the Dr.
we're
Pepper and
trying
cream
to
soda.
form our ancestors with like cream soda and stuff.
Mm,
Like, dude, I fucking
Yeah, I really like
love cream soda.
tear that up.
The Dr.
yeah.
Pepper and cream soda.
That shit's good,
One
dude.
of the best. Yeah, it was one of the best ones.
Okay. Oh man, good choice.
What would you call that in context with the book?
I call it a Dr. Vanilla, but
All right,
I've
that's
been
pretty
drinking
good.
it for years.
Doc Van Hatten.
Dr. Manila.
Yeah, something like that.
Something to think about. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
well,
that's
good drinks
trademark
all
right
around.
now.
Banana. Readings for squares.
Oh my gosh. That's the newest segment of the show we're getting into where Higgins interrupts me. Almost didn't make it that time.
I
But
know, I was trying to interrupt.
you still got
I
in
almo-
there. But so yeah, we're going to talk about things that aren't books. So Zach, what's a thing that's not a book that you've been getting into? It could be anything. It could be video games. It could be taking your daughter to the park. Whatever you're about.
Dude, that's a good question because I haven't really played a video game like 6 months. I finished my second playthrough of Baldur's Gate and like nothing has hit since. Which I mean, come on, it's fucking Baldur's Gate. That game was incredible.
When you say
So-
finished a second playthrough, is that like
That's
another
like 240
300
hours.
Yeah, dude, it was great. I loved every minute of it. I made no new changes. I did everything the exact same way I did. It was fantastic. But dude,
I haven't played it
like
once.
for the past like 6 months, we get these 4-hour breaks every weekend where it's like no baby watching, do whatever the fuck you want to do. And I've been spending it all on books. That's a good question, but
No TV, no musics.
no, I started The Penguin like 3 weeks ago, and I got through like 3 episodes.
I
Music,
finished
I've just been listening to Alice in Chains still, which they're not making any new music anytime soon.
That blew my mind. I saw he showed me his Spotify Wrapped, and Alice in Chains was his number one. And I was like, what a pull.
Dude,
He's got like
sometimes
Alice in
I'll just
Chains and
let
then like Billie
Unplugged
Eilish
play.
or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes I'll just let like the Unplugged album just fucking play for like
well,
hours.
that's fair. I mean, Nutshell. Come on.
Dude, the Unplugged version of Down the Hole, come on.
Yeah. It's like that, the Nirvana one, and the Pearl Jam one. Those really all hit.
Personally, I was never into Pearl Jam, but that Nirvana Unplugged album's like The Man Who Sold the World. Come on.
I'm just saying you're wrong, but not that part. The Pearl Jam part, because Pearl Jam's really good. especially
Now
in
I'm
that
gonna wake up to
unplugged
like
version.
Eat Shit and Die, and also Pearl Jam is better than you think.
She's gonna
Yeah.
be sending you Pearl Jam song recommendations after he tells you to eat shit and die.
Yeah.
Watch this video, by the way.
Just watch this.
Well, that's good stuff. Give me real quick, just what is it about Baldur's Gate? Because I never played it. I'm assuming you're talking about the third one or whichever
Yeah.
one came out recently. So, what is it that this game did that just everybody got on board for?
Did you guys play Dragon Age Origins when it came out?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember, you were kind of younger and like just totally enraptured you with the writing and the characters and like, do you remember
Absolutely.
that feeling?
Yeah, like I had never had a game where I could. You're telling me I can pick a dwarf and plays that, but also I can choose to either be one of royalty that gets banished or just one that works in the mines and is slumming it and go through a 0 to hero story. Like, yeah, absolutely, I know that feeling.
Dude, Baldur's Gate makes you feel that feeling 10 times more. I'm not
Wow.
gonna
And
say
you can have sex with a bear
you can totally have sex with a bear. I think you can have a threesome with a bear, actually.
and a vampire.
That's
A bear and a vampire.
Now,
Bear.
that is one of my
And then
small
they're-
problems with Baldur's Gate is it's ridiculously horny.
I've actually heard the same thing before. It's very horny, apparently. Yeah.
Like there's a dude wizard named Gale, and he was one of my friends in my playthrough, and he like invited me into like this magical glade and made clones of himself, and he was like, "So you want to do a gangbang with 8 me's?" I was like, "Dude, I don't even thought we were bros."
I haven't
we
even
getting
eaten dinner yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just
I heard it was-
storytelling really well then. Okay, yeah. And it's funny, I've heard other developers and publishers basically just be like, why did you make this? Because now the bar is set high. As far as like just you have to deliver on storytelling and like giving a compelling world and narrative now.
Well, the thing about it, that is, I guess it didn't quite get as much like big everybody hit, but like they made like Divinity Original Sin, which is more of a like top down version of what they did, I guess. More
the same developers.
same
did
idea,
it?
yeah. Lariat or
Lariat,
something
yeah.
like that.
Okay, yeah.
They made this, and it was like a top down. It was basically the same-ish game. You can pick multiple things. It's
Fantasy,
like a
it's-
turn-based strategy tactics type deal.
Okay.
And I actually played that a bunch with like Steph and our friend Dalton, and I played like a good bit of hours with them. And it's really fun. And I heard this is just like they did that, but then made 100 and 200 plus hours of dialogue that some person might never see.
Yeah.
So they just overmade it.
Yeah.
I used to love Divinity. I don't think I'll ever play it again because Baldur's Gate shits on it so hard.
Well, it's one.
Mm,
That's one story, and sure, there might be a few different things you can do, but this is they basically let you play D&D by yourself.
oh, okay.
So the joys that everybody gets from playing Dungeons and Dragons or whatever tabletop role playing game of your choice that you like, you got to go in there and basically make your own story. Is what I've gathered from everything I've heard.
Nice.
Sure, there's a set thing, and sure, like they're kind of guiding you, but you have so much like action over what happens to you. Plus, there's brainworms.
Yeah, but we had those in real life. It's running our health organization next
Yeah,
year.
but these brainworms give you special powers at the cost of maybe like going crazy later on
Oh, that's way cool.
or dying.
Okay, nice. Yeah, it just kind of seems like one of those games that somehow managed to deliver on its promise of we're going to let you make a choice that actually follows into the story sort of situation.
It's one of the first games that lets you do anything.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. It's one of those games that based on everything that you guys have said sounds right up my alley, but it just came 15 years too late because now I don't have the time to put into it.
I'm just being honest with myself. I would probably really love it for 5 hours
Mm-hmm.
and then never touch it again.
Mm-hmm.
which I
If
That's
didn't.
not the
you
game
can put
fault.
it down after like 5 hours, I'll refund it. I'll pay you $60.
I have a really bad brain when it comes to games, Zach. I can dive head first, play for 5 hours straight in one day, and then never touch the game again.
He's never
Tell you I love it.
Yeah.
Listen to a podcast to tell me the rest of the story so I don't feel like I missed out anything.
Yeah.
But for some reason, my brain won't let me finish games, mainly because it gets too hard. I'm just bad.
Baldur's
at
Gate
them.
is challenging for sure.
I'm just bad at games.
We've talked about that. We need a dedicated Higgins mode, which is before easy mode, and then you're just going to be cruising through every game.
Well, the thing is, they make the easy mode like a baby version. I need like an easy mode, but still feel like I'm doing hard stuff.
Okay. What if you just
I want
have,
them to
like,
trick
one of
me
those,
into
like,
thinking I'm good.
What if you have one of those like Clippy style mascots that pops up?
Yeah.
And just
Do you
tells
need help
that
here?
You're doing a really good job, Higgins.
Yeah.
Like, this is pretty tough, but you're doing it. Like, everything's exactly the same, but except that element where it makes you think that it's harder than it is, and that you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think we can make that work. Tweet somebody. I don't know who, but tweet somebody and see if you can get traction.
Yeah.
Let's get Michael Lopez on the phone. He'll make it happen.
Yeah, he'll make it. Give me a Higgins mode. I'm sure that'll show up in a game one of the days.
This is what Alan Moore wanted.
Yeah.
The reason I'm writing Watchmen is to make a Higgins mode one day.
Yeah. Just making sacrifices, playing the long game. Higgins, you checking anything out?
God. I went to work today, but I didn't go to work the past 2 days because I caught the bug. I caught the Christmas bug, and I laid on this couch right over here for all of the hours except for when I was sleeping. And I watched 6 movies.
Okay.
I'm going to list them off to you, and you tell me which one you want me to talk about.
Okay. I'll let Zach do it since he's the guest.
All right. So technically it's 8 because I recently watched the first 2 Transformers movies, and I finished Revenge of the Fallen. That's the side story. Not important.
Important to me.
Then I watched Rebel Ridge.
Okay.
The Substance.
Mm.
American Assassin. That was just a fun action thing that I've already seen.
Okay.
I was kind of asleep at that point. And then I watched... Man, I was just talking about all these. You can cut this out and post the silences.
No, I think it adds to the overall product. Yeah.
I watched Speak No Evil, The Whale, and there was something else. I can't remember.
Well, dude, how was
But yeah, from those.
Oh, there you go.
Huh?
How's the whale?
The Whale? It was really good. I had heard that it was pretty sad. It was a little sad. It made you feel things that were like, it was sad, but it made you feel happy about being sad.
I don't know if I felt that. I felt that maybe at one point.
It made me feel happier about being sad than like Iron Claw did when I watched it.
I see Iron Claw didn't.
Iron
really
Claw
get
made me
in that way.
sad about being sad.
The
Whale made me happy about, or at least it made it feel happy by the end.
It is a very sad
Made it feel
movie.
worthwhile.
I did not want to eat for a week after I saw that man eat on screen. It's a very interesting just character study, that movie, because it basically never leaves the apartment, right? You might see a shot of the outside of the apartment, but
the farthest
Brendan Fraser's the main guy, but you never see him leave that apartment. And that's where you spend all of the movie, basically. So it does a really great job to me of just making you get inside this man's head and see what he's doing to himself, what his environment's doing to him, and just like the spiral that he's in. And who's the Who's the daughter in that movie?
Sadie Sink.
Yes, Sadie Sink. She's
from Stranger Things.
one of the Stranger Things kids.
She's the running up the hill girl.
Daughter.
She's the run up the hill girl.
She is running up that hill, yeah. But their dynamic, just kind of the fallout they've had, and trying to rebuild that relationship and the struggles of that. Like, again, I think it's a great character study, and you really get into feeling what he's feeling in that movie.
I think what I liked so much about like their dynamic was that she's such a shit to him.
Yeah,
he's like a just absolutely brutal to her like father, and probably for good reason. But he never once complains or says a bad thing about it. He is so dang positive about everything that's not connected to his direct life.
Yes, and I think it has to do with the guilt that he feels for what he's done in his past, and almost as if, actually, it's not even almost, it's exactly what it is, of everything that you see in that movie that is happening to him, that what he's doing to himself, you're just like, oh, this is awful. But he sees it as, I deserve this. Like, it's a man who wants to make amends for the mistakes he's made in his past, but also he genuinely believes, like, no, this is what I had coming for what I've done. And I don't want to get into what he's done, because I think you should, if you are interested in it, I think you should watch it, because that's what made it hit just really hard for me. But I think the way it ends in particular is it's a very kind of beautiful, hopeful ending in a lot of ways too. So yeah, I think it's worth a watch, especially if like you said earlier, you love character stuff. That's all this is, driving it. So yeah.
And he's a books teacher kind of too. He helps people. He teaches essays and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's sick.
That's in there.
It actually kind of reminds me of the comedian in some ways.
Oh yeah,
it's the comedian. Is that the Robert De Niro?
Yeah, no, like the character.
No, we were just talking about
the comedian, the character. Yeah. Okay.
Like his mentality of like, I'm such a shit and I deserve this, but also like just the complexities of that nature. That sounds like a comedian if you just took that out of context.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, he's not punching any Viet Cong women, thankfully. So only the comedian's doing that. Yeah.
Like,
I'm saying not 4 hours of fat ass Brendan Fraser just like
murdering Viet Congs. I also watched Boy Kills World. That's I finally remembered. The one with Bill Skarsgård, and he's
clown from
got H. John Benjamin in his head.
Yeah, okay.
How was that? Well, that's a great time. You should watch that.
Yeah.
It's really, really funny, and a lot of murder happened.
Yeah, this is his like I got fit and now I'm an action star movie kind of thing, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's still like artsy version of that.
Nice.
Kind of felt like an even sillier Kingsman almost, with like the violence.
Oh, okay.
As far as the fight scenes go,
they
look really. They're very dynamic.
Yeah. Did you just say H. John Benjamin is in his head?
H. John Benjamin is his inner monologue.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because he's a deaf mute.
Oh.
And so when H. John Benjamin's voice was in the video game that he played as a kid. And so that's just how he talks to himself. It's just H. John Benjamin's voice.
Okay, that's
he's
fun.
A narrator.
I had no idea that was the premise of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's deaf and mute, and he's going on a killing spree because why?
Some lady killed his family.
Okay, so revenge
it's like
story.
A dystopian Hunger Games type thing where they have a culling. This family like kills people that break their laws every like year.
Yeah.
They'll pick like 12 people and they're like, we got to cull you. And that happened to be his family. And so he somehow gets out of it.
Yeah.
And trains. And then you get into the movie.
He wants revenge.
He wants revenge.
Okay. But he was already deaf and mute at that point, or they like, I don't know. I'm just asking questions. I'm just curious.
That's more of a you got to watch thing.
Okay.
It's deeper than it looks.
Yeah.
I started it.
How's the acting? Because if he's not talking, like, Did you get old or sorry? Did you get tired of that after a while of
Oh,
that?
no, it's good the whole time,
Okay, cool.
and they got some good side characters.
Oh yeah,
There's some
anyone
good
we know?
folks in there? I mean, there's faces you've seen. There are nobody specifically that I can like know the name of.
Just some that guy and these
Some
gals.
it's like I've seen that guy in a thing.
Yeah.
The
Love those.
the Russian-y guy from Stranger Things is in there, with the beard.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
and then a couple other people. There's like a crazy guy named like Banjo or Bonjo or something like
Just getting it done.
Boncho. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Nice. Where'd you
There's-
watch that on?
Hulu.
Oh, it's on Hulu.
Yeah.
It's on your local Hulu box. Okay, I could get
Yeah.
into that.
So what I'm basically telling you guys, if you have the time to do this, get sick a few days, lay on the couch all day, and watch movies forever.
Mm.
You don't do that, Zach, because you have a kid, but Snoop can.
He did sneeze directly into my mouth today, so it might be.
But you've got like adult or not? You've got like parent level defenses when it comes to germs.
Oh no, dude! My kid had me fucked up like 2 months ago.
Okay.
She was just getting better, and she like once again just sneezed directly on my face. And then 3 days later, I was like, "I'm dying."
Oh
Not my
no!
child, I left her, but I won't see her.
And let her know that this is on her.
Make sure she grows up knowing she killed her father.
I hate to like justify the thing where like women are just better at handling like colds and stuff like that.
Dude, totally.
But Bethany was such a I don't know the word I'm trying to say, but she was so much better at being sick than I was. I was so miserable.
Mhm.
And here I am like I'm still a little stuffy, but I'm kind of back after 3 days, and she's still feeling bad after like 7.
Mm. So it hits you more intensely, but you recover quicker. So trade
Something
off.
like that.
Yeah, I'd rather have it that way personally.
Yeah.
Just really knock it out in a few rough days, and then you're back.
Either that or I'm a wimp. I don't know, maybe.
Well, you're on the mend already, so
Possible.
that's good.
Yeah.
So if anything, she's a wimp.
I just got tired of being sick, so I stopped doing it.
I don't understand why like paraplegics and stuff. So like, just get up and walk. What's wrong with you?
Just do the thing.
Yeah,
you guys
wheelchair.
trying?
Just fucking use your legs, buddy.
I don't know. Some people just don't have it. I guess that's why we have a podcast and they don't.
That's exactly why. I didn't want to say it, so I'm glad someone else did.
Oh man. I think we're done.
So Higgins, pick up that broom and let's sweep up shop.
I think I got it in my system. If you like listening to our words, put a review in all of the places that you've listened to. Maybe write some comment. You can write comments on Spotify on specific episodes.
Oh,
We might see them.
I didn't know that.
I don't know. I don't know if we will.
But you
I
can
looked
do it.
through it. I might can, but you can do it
Mhm.
at the bottom of our episode. And Apple, if you do like a review, I haven't looked in forever, but I also don't think anybody hasn't done it in a while. So you guys should. You can listen to us anywhere. We're even on YouTube sometimes. They make little AI shorts out of our episodes. It's pretty cool. Michael has a company. It's 008 Studios. He sponsored us. He helps us make this so you can listen it. Check it all out. We talked about it earlier, so we don't have to do that now. If you want to talk to us specifically, you can do that through the email that he gave us, which is the Comixology Club at 0-8studios.com, where you can send us all sorts of things. Your thoughts on Watchmen, your thoughts on ZB Steele's book and what you would like him to write next, what color your favorite popsicle is.
Blue.
We'll look at
Red.
all of them.
Mm.
I'm honestly a big fan of orange, and I know that's an unpopular opinion.
It's a
Good
horrible
color.
opinion.
It's a good color though.
That's also a horrible
Well-
opinion.
Mm.
I like orange and purple,
Dude, what are we talking about? This is awful.
but my favorite's pink.
It's not a
But
great color
orange and
combination,
purple are a
though,
close
orange and
second.
purple. Ooh, a pink and purple though. That'd be kind of nice.
Yeah.
I like strawberry and watermelon.
Yeah, I'll give
flavored
you
stuff.
pink. Thanks.
But yeah, you can send us a bunch of that stuff. You can find me on Instagram at jsturm93. I'm on Twitter at MikeHiggins93. I guess. I think that's still there.
X the everything out.
Snoop's on Instagram still?
Yeah.
Snoop_Lynch.
It's true.
He'll look at it probably.
Come hang out with me on Blue Sky.
I
Actually,
don't have Blue Sky.
Come
or
hang out with
Threads.
me on there.
I'm all out. I'm all out of room for new social media.
Is that why you haven't accepted my Vero invite?
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. But Threads is dangerously trying to get me because they keep showing me half posts on Instagram.
And then you click on it and you're like, I just
and
want to
then
read
it
the
just
rest of this
takes
real
me
quick.
to the
And then it
App
takes you to
Store.
Threads on the App Store and you're like, no.
I just wanted to look at that one.
Yeah. I'm glad someone else is going through the same pain. It's got me a few times.
They only give you half. They used to let you look at the one.
Yeah.
But now they know how to get me, and it's not going to work.
No.
I don't care enough.
But you're on Instagram. You're on Twitter.
I'm on
or X.
Instagram, and you can find that. Where can we find you, ZB? Steele?
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry. I got off
Most
the
on
tangent.
Twitter, it's ZB_Steele with an E at the end. I do have a website that has had a total of 10 views as of today. So if anyone would like to log on and add a significant percentage to my website, that'd be cool too.
Do you have a website? What's your website called?
ZBSteele.com.
Nice.
Like I said, 10 views. We're getting up there.
Views? Man. Anything else? Anywhere else you might want to see people?
But not really.
That's fine.
Not really on Instagram.
That's
It's
fair.
pretty much mostly just Twitter.
Yeah. You're too busy writing, getting those books out. And we appreciate that. And we look forward to the other books that you put out soon. And I look forward to saying thank you for doing this episode with us. So thank you.
Go, man. This was
All right,
a blast.
thanks.
It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I like
Glad
your
to hear
book,
that.
buddy.
Thanks.
Normally people just yell at us for about 10 minutes and then I have to edit it out. So this is nice.
Oh, dude, when y'all started saying orange is the best color in popsicle, I was like, this is getting. I'm going
I
to
didn't say the best. It was the top 3.
I'll leave that part in. Adds a bit of tension. But no, yeah, thank you again for doing this with us. And thank you, Higgins, for doing this with us
I do it
in your
again.
house. Thank you, New Cat, for falling asleep on my book bag. Charlie on the couch. We're all doing stuff. And join us next time when we do another episode with a fan favorite guest, Bessie. She's going to be in here.
My gal B.
His gal B. But until then, I'll say cheers, guys, and I'll remind Higgins to get that egg in you. Eat it up.
As always.
Always. ZB Steele, Zach, what do you want to say? Gabrielle, as your Google Meet handle says.
Yeah, I actually have to use my wife's computer for this because the computer I write on, the screen is hanging on by one hinge, and every once in a while the fan just goes fucking berserk. So that's what the masterpieces are being written on. Is something a laptop I can't move. If I move it, the screen might pop off.
So what you're
I'll leave a note saying buy Watchmen and buy my book so I can write the next one. Buy both of these.
Love it. All right, Higgins, what do you have to say?
I feel really bad about what I have to say, but eat shit, Zach. No, roll credits.
You got the and die, but
Oh, eat shit and die, Zach.
yeah.
Wow.
Sorry.